Welcome in, everybody. You know what? I got to get started on that again. As everybody comes on in, everybody come on in, everybody come on in. We're going to lock in. We're going to do this. We're going to go on Twitter. We're going to tell everybody to lock in. All right. Three, two, one. All right. I appreciate everybody joining me. Good to be back. Good to be back. All right. So it is Tuesday night, and this is what we're going to do going forward every single Tuesday. We are going to react in real time to whatever is happening on college hoops on any Tuesday night. We'll obviously run it on the Wednesday Aaron Torres pod. But this felt like a really good night to kind of get this thing going. We've done a couple live reactions, and the reason Kentucky was playing an important game. Carolina was playing. It was actually a very busy, entertaining night in college hoops. But let's start in the place where we kind of got to start. That's Rupp Arena. And the reason we got to start Rupp Arena is because everybody's been winning in Rupp Arena except the Kentucky Wildcats. They came in on a 3-game losing streak. Listen, we talked about it on the Monday Aaron Torres pod. We talked about it after the Gonzaga game. But it has been a dark couple days for the Kentucky Wildcats. They were at home Wednesday night facing Ole Miss and Kentucky in essentially a must-win game. I truly believe it was a must-win game. They get the victory 75-63 in what I would argue to be the best game that they have played all season long, or certainly at least over the last couple weeks. By the way, drop questions or comments on YouTube. We'll get to them after the segment. But from the Kentucky perspective, listen, there is nothing else to say other than that this team desperately needed a win. They get it. But I think if you're a Kentucky fan, the important thing is how it happened. I'm not here to say Ole Miss is the best team that you have played all season long, but it was the balance of really good on offense, but also really good on defense. Obviously, from the offensive perspective, listen, man, I know so many people talk about lineups and who to play where and this and that, and the other thing, but it was clearly clicking in a way that it hasn't. It is worth noting that John Calipari, as he's referenced several times over the last couple weeks, Kentucky finally had their full complement of guys, at least until Trey Mitchell got hurt. But they have their full complement of guys, and the offense looks as good as it has in a long time in a balance with playing good defense. Obviously thought the star of the game, Reed Sheppard, no doubt in my mind. Listen, man, every time this guy is on the court, good things happen. He finishes the game with 13 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Let me make sure I have those stats correct. Reed Sheppard does, in fact, finish with 13 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Every time he steps on the floor, good things happen. Thought it was a great game from Antonio Reeves. Awesome 15 points, hits a couple threes. Justin Edwards actually carried them early with 12 points as well, and Rob Dillingham was awesome. Equally important, Kentucky was really good defensively. Now, again, I know Ole Miss isn't the best defensive team that has ever played, or the best offensive team that has ever played basketball, but this was such an important effort from this team. By the way, I would say listen, the Kentucky defense has been a hot topic, and there have been moments where it has been bad, really bad, but there have been moments where I think it's actually been better than people give it credit for. Saturday against Gonzaga, listen, bottom line was they were down a big guy. They did not have enough help in the front court. I thought that's where it was hurt, but today, significantly better. Ghana Nyenso obviously finishes with 10 blocks on the day, 8 points to go along with 3 rebounds. And again, just overall, the effort was much better. Passing lanes, jumping passing lanes, doing all that good stuff. So when I look at this Kentucky game, like I said, I think this was the most complete effort of their season. And I think it gets them back on track. Now, look, the problem with Kentucky, but also why this game was so important, the schedule does not get any easier going forward for this team. You obviously have to go to Auburn on Saturday. You still have at Tennessee. You still have Alabama at home. You still have at Mississippi State, which is always a tough place to play. So this win gets you back on track. I'm not ready to make any declarative statements about this team, but I do think it's kind of important to note. Like when I look at this Kentucky team, what stands out to me is all of the pieces are there. Now it's on the coaching staff to get the right guys with each other, not play too many guys. And I actually thought Calipari did a good job on Tuesday night of not forcing things, not forcing lineups. Aaron Bradshaw seemed to play the right amount of minutes. Reed Sheppard played a lot more than he has in some games, even if it was off the bench. Dillingham got plenty of minutes. DJ Wagner, I thought, got the right amount of minutes. So for Kentucky, listen, I think tonight is a reflection of the good and the bad, the frustrating and the non-frustrating. Because at the end of the day, you look at this team and you sit there and say, when it clicks, it is so beautiful and it is so fun to watch. But then you also obviously have some frustrating moments as well. So I don't really know what else there is to add. You don't want to get too declarative on this team right now because it does not get any easier starting again with the game at Auburn on Saturday, but thought it was a good win. And we'll answer some of your questions at the end. So go ahead and drop in those questions. Really quickly, some other results from Tuesday night that I do think are at least worth addressing. North Carolina Tar Heels are not very good right now. And it's funny because we've talked a lot about Carolina on the show. And we've talked about them in large part because of the fact that, like, I liked them in the preseason. I was the only one. And you know that nobody likes talking about stuff that he gets right more than Torres, right? I love telling you about all the stuff I get right. So when they were awesome this year, I really, I wouldn't shut up about them. But the bottom line is they have not played well. They go to Syracuse. They end up losing 86-79 to the Orange. Now, first of all, credit to Syracuse. Listen, I've been saying for years, everybody's been saying, well, what happens after Jim Boeheim leaves? What's going to become of this program? How good are they going to be? And I keep sitting there saying, you people are saying that what happens after Jim Boeheim? Jim Boeheim's the person that's holding this program back. So Syracuse gets the win. They're not great, but they're 16-9 overall on the season. But at the same time, the story here is Carolina. They were so good early. They have now lost 4 of their last 6 over the last couple weeks. And really the difference with Carolina is a couple things. I think most importantly, the defense just hasn't been there. This team can always score the basketball. The issue becomes they have not been great on the defensive end of the court. This was a team that early in ACC play was elite. First 5 wins of ACC play in January, 60 points allowed, 57 points allowed, 55 points allowed, 54 points allowed, 67 points allowed. Well, last 5 games, let's go ahead and take a look at what they have given up. They gave up 73 in a loss to Georgia Tech, 84 in a win over Duke, 80 in a loss to Clemson, 72 and 86 on Tuesday night. For Carolina, I think this loss is also big because now you are tied in the loss column with the Duke Blue Devils. Duke, I still think Carolina is the better team than Duke, but you had a 2-game lead over them after you beat Duke a few weeks ago. You're fighting for a number 1 seed. Now you're tied with Duke in the loss column. You have to go to Duke late in the year. And on top of everything else, you, of course, are struggling and you're fighting for a number 1 seed. It's not just about the ACC regular season championship. It's about also the possibility of getting a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Well, right now, Purdue's in better position than you. UConn's obviously in better position than you. Houston's still playing really well. Arizona's making a move. So this is actually like a very significant loss for Carolina. I would not be happy if I was a Carolina fan. Quickly ripping through a couple other scores. By the way, again, this will all be available on Wednesday's Aaron Torres pod. We're going to hit on some other stuff as well. Some big news, by the way, NCAA tournament expansion. People were talking about that. College football playoff news. We'll get to all that on Wednesday's Aaron Torres pod. Get into some other stuff in college hoops on Wednesday night. First of all, Indiana State. I don't know how many people have followed this story. It was a really cool story up until Wednesday night. So Indiana State, of course, Larry Legend, Larry Bird played there, make the 1979 national championship game. How about this? Coming into the week, Indiana State was 22-3. This was the most wins that they've had in any season since Larry Bird was there. They get ranked in the top 25 for the first time in like 40 years. And they end up losing at home to a pretty bad Missouri State team. This is interesting because, listen, as we get closer to March, we'll start talking bubble, this, that. I don't love talking bubble. By the way, I think I said Missouri State. I meant to say Illinois State. I don't love talking bubble this early in the season. But Indiana State, as I mentioned, was 22-3 coming into today. Their only losses were at Alabama, at Michigan State, at Drake. Essentially, they didn't have a bad loss on the resume all season long. And so to lose this game tonight in the setting that they did, it's just brutal because, again, as you get closer to the bubble, that was a team that maybe they sneak in. If they don't win the conference tournament, that's a bad loss that's going to hurt the resume. A couple other results, one, Iowa State's really good. Like, we have not talked much about Iowa State at all on this show. And it's because they don't play the sexiest brand of basketball. Like, they're just not like a super fun watch, but they are elite defensively. They beat Cincinnati at home. Remember, Cincinnati's in the Big 12 now. They win 68-59. They force 25 turnovers, okay? And if you're looking for teams in college basketball that could potentially, kind of make a run, maybe they're not being talked about enough. Iowa State is now tied for first in the Big 12 standings with Houston. They have a head-to-head win over Houston, and they're trending towards like a 2 or a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament with all the good wins that they're picking up in the Big 12. They play elite defense, as I said, forced 25 turnovers in the win over Cincinnati. And you start talking about a team that probably not enough people are talking about, they get the win. I thought Florida picked up an important win. They were up like 20 points in the second half against LSU. LSU rallies, ends up tying the game. Florida wins. Florida quietly has won 6 of their last 7. The only loss was a 1-point loss at Texas A&M in a game that, frankly, they should have won. Listen, I was a little critical of the Todd Golden hire, but I thought they actually are playing very, very, very good basketball right now. They're an NCAA tournament team, and I think they're a team that when they get to the tournament, they can win games. Really good personnel, really good players. They survive. I mentioned A&M. A&M took a really bad loss to that tonight. They played Vanderbilt earlier this evening. They lose to Vandy. Final score in that one, 74-73. Listen, I go on Texas Radio every week. I don't know what the heck's going on with Texas A&M. Feels like a 2 steps forward, 1 steps back thing. They were playing well. Now they're not. They lose to Vandy. That is a crushing loss. They're still in good position NCAA tournament-wise to get in, but this was a team that was picked to finish second in the SEC. This was a team that was in the preseason top 15, and now they're trending like a 9-10 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's a weird team. It's a weird year. They had some guys on the roster early in the year suspended, this, that, the other thing, but Texas A&M takes a brutal loss. A couple other results to note in the Big East. Marquette wins. Why that is significant, they go to UConn on Saturday. That will be a top 5 matchup in Hartford at the Xcel Center. UConn plays on Wednesday against DePaul. We'll talk a little bit about UConn later on. And then also on top of that, in the Big East, Providence rallies to beat St. John's. St. John's was down big. Then they rally back. Then they get Providence ends up with the win. For St. John's, man, listen, spent a lot of time talking about Big Rick energy during the offseason and the early part of the season. Well, St. John's has now lost 4 of 5 and 7 of their last 9. That's some Little Rick energy right there. I'm not going to lie. They need to get back on track. I think they're 13-11, 14-11 overall right now. Good thing is they hit a little bit of a soft spot in their schedule coming up. 2 games against Georgetown, 1 against DePaul, 1 against Butler. The good news is there is there's wins to be had. The bad news is they're not going to be good wins. Also thought it was interesting, John Rothstein on the broadcast tonight mentioned St. John's, when they play the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden, those will be considered home court games, not neutral site games, which will hurt them in terms of if you pick up some big wins, it doesn't mean as much in the computers. So St. John's a team to keep an eye on. Big Ten, Illinois rolls Michigan. Listen, the story with Michigan, I don't think Juwan Howard is there for that much longer. It has been a tough go of it for him. I think he sneaks back to the NBA after this season. I think Michigan's looking for a new head coach. He is struggling. Illinois looks really good. Wisconsin, by the way, was on a 4-game losing streak. They win. They beat Ohio State. Ohio State, I believe, will also be looking for a new head coach as well. And really quickly in the Mountain West, San Diego State does rally to beat Colorado State. Those are 2 NCAA tournament teams. Producer Matt, do we have any interesting questions in the chat or not before we get out of here for the night? Did UK finally fix their defense from Dan Rivera, or is that just a fluky game? Listen, they have the dudes. And I think, listen, what I think with Kentucky is a lot of it is, and listen, I'm not trying to do the Coach Cal water, carrying water. When you have 9 guys that you essentially play, or even 8 tonight, and none of them are playing together consistently, that's really hard. And so even when I look at what Kentucky did Saturday against Gonzaga, they were really struggling in the pick and roll. Then they kind of figured it out. And so it's like, and that's when they went on their run. And so I don't think they're as bad as people think. I don't think they're good by any stretch. But yes, this was a major step in the right direction. And again, I'm not here to say like they figured it out by any stretch, but I don't think they're necessarily as bad. I do think they need the big guys to play well like they did tonight. Onyenso obviously played well, 10 blocks. Aaron Bradshaw, I thought, actually played really well. Anything else? Anything else before we get out of here? Did Edwards play too much? It's an interesting question. First of all, he had the first 7 points. They might have lost if he didn't play the way he did. This is who Cal is, man. Listen, I have largely been a defender of Cal. Obviously, the last probably 4 or 5 days, I've been very critical of him. But he is always going to play the high-level freshman, and it's for two obvious reasons. One, they're the most talented players, and he believes if I can have my talented players ready for March, it is going to pay off because talent trumps all. Two, you got to play them so you can get them drafted so you can get the next crop of 5 stars. So do I think he played too much? No, I actually think he played the right amount of time. I actually thought Bradshaw, I was kind of surprised, has been playing less and less. That's one that I think it's tough because obviously, as we all know, there's a lot of people in Aaron Bradshaw's ear. Not his fault. He's an 18-year-old kid. But I wonder if that's going to be something that Calipari hears about over the next couple of days from Bradshaw's people. Anything else before we get out of here? Reed also finished with 5 steals. I did not even realize that. Reed Shepherd's awesome, man. Like, listen, I know in the Kentucky media, it's a lot of who's playing, how much are they playing, should they be playing, why are they not playing, this, that, the other thing. But as long as he's on the court, like, I don't care if he starts. Maybe he should because the team keeps starting off slow. But the kid is just so good. He makes everyone around him better. I forget what account it was. I feel bad when I don't credit the proper people. But there was an account that basically listed on Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever today is, like the 5 best Kentucky lineups, and all of them involve Reed Shepherd, at least, based on the advanced metrics. So I don't know if he should be starting. I don't know if whatever, but that dude makes so many impact plays. He seemingly never misses when he's open from behind the 3-point line. He sets up others. He is just such a good basketball player. Anything else before we get out of here? Enjoy when you will lose in Auburn. That's 100%. Listen, Auburn's one of the toughest places to play in college basketball. And that's why, like, if you're a Kentucky fan, you can't get too excited because Auburn's like the toughest place to play in the SEC. And that's why, like, listen, we don't have to address it now. That was from Eddie James, by the way. Enjoy when you will lose in Auburn. I feel like you're missing a word there, Eddie, but that's okay. Neither here nor there. I just... Like, this is why you can't get too excited if you're Kentucky, but I'll take it even a step further. This is why I truly believed, and I might have gotten criticized for saying it. This is why you don't put everything out on Twitter, every single thing that you're thinking in every single moment. But I really thought, like there's this thought of like, well, there's no way that Kentucky is possibly going to miss the NCAA tournament, even as much as they've been struggling. And what I said is I actually disagree. I actually felt like if you lost this game, you're now sitting at 16-8 overall. You still have to go to Auburn, to Tennessee, Alabama at home, plus the SEC tournament. That's not looking very good. By the way, Mississippi State is not easy either. And so I just bring it up to say this was a really important game. You get back on track. Listen, I still believe in this team because when they're clicking, they're so freaking good. But it's just, can you get that consistently? And can you get off to better starts, right? Because even tonight, you were down 5-0 before you even blink. You do that at Auburn, that 5-0 is going to be 15-2 before you know what's going on. Same with when you play Tennessee. Same with when you play Alabama. So it's so important to get back on track. Busy night in college hoops, though. It was a really fun night. We got anything else besides Auburn fans getting mad? This is hands down my favorite sports show. Michael Lowe, you're my guy. Listen, we work hard. We have fun. I appreciate your support. We do a lot of fun stuff, man. I think we cover the topics that college sports fans want to talk about. Hopefully we do it in a fun way. I try not to take myself too seriously. That's why we do Where Aaron Was Right, Where Aaron Was Wrong every week. But Michael, I appreciate your support, my brother. I appreciate it. We work hard. We have fun. Producer Matt, by the way, who's behind the scenes, is doing a lot to help this show go off as strongly as it does and helps with all the social media. What else we got? We got anything else in here? Any teams that can make a deep Sweet 16 run that isn't the big dogs or too early to discuss? I don't think it is. By the way, you know what we're also going to discuss? Me taking off this jacket because it's like 200 degrees in this room that I'm in right now. Listen, couple that I like. One, I mentioned them earlier. Florida's really freaking good, okay? And I've said this about Florida before, is that with Florida, like, so first of all, Todd Golden, I'll give him credit. He's a guy, like, he just acknowledges, like, this is an NIL portal world. He's come out and said, I'm not recruiting high school guys. And he's come out and said, our NIL wasn't good enough last year. So I don't know exactly what guys are getting paid down there, but they're getting paid something and they're having success. And I look at them, 6 of their last 7 in the SEC, a win at Rupp. They smacked Auburn the other day. Sorry to Eddie Jones, our resident Auburn fan who's just talking trash right now. You got destroyed on Saturday, buddy. But they are a team that four really good guards. The Pullen kid is really good. Walter Clayton's really good. Who's the other ones I'm trying to think of? Riley Kugel, and then the fourth one is Will Richard. Four really good guards, athletic bigs. Tyree Samuel's a big down low. I think Florida gets in. They'll be like an 8-9. I mean, I don't want to do the they'll beat Purdue thing, but like that's the kind of team that would give Purdue absolute fits. Outside of them, the Mountain West has some really good teams. The crazy thing about the Mountain West, really quick, Dan asks college basketball teams that could make surprise runs. Think about the Mountain West. Like most of those teams will have the best player on the floor when they actually get into the tournament, right? So San Diego State made the final championship game last year. Lamont Butler and Jaden Leday could play at any program in the country. Isaiah Stevens from Colorado State's really good. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Jared Lucas from Nevada is one of the all-time leading scorers in California history. He was at Oregon State, led them to an Elite Eight during that COVID bubble season. So the Mountain West has about 3-4 teams that I think could do damage. By the way, New Mexico, Richard Pitino, the coach there, their best player is Jamal Mashburn Jr., so I think they're really good as well. Drop your questions, drop your comments. We'll keep this thing going as long as you guys have questions. UF, South Florida, Iowa State, and Baylor come to mind. Those are actually four really good teams. Now, again, Iowa State, because of where they're trending, they're tied for first place in the Big 12. They'll be a 2 seed, but I don't think people are talking about them. Baylor, it's kind of the same 2 seed, 3 seed, something like that. South Carolina, listen, I've said this about South Carolina consistently. South Carolina, I think, does a better job of making you play their style than anyone in college basketball. They play super slow. They rebound, no transition defense. And it's like you're not scoring like 80 points on them. You're just not doing it. Kentucky learned that the hard way. Tennessee learned that the hard way. So I think South Carolina is a really good one as well. Iowa State is really good, by the way. What else we got here? Florida Atlantic. I'm kind of in and out on Florida Atlantic. They got to get some water here. Got to stay hydrated. Florida Atlantic. Listen, sometimes when you return everybody from a team, that's not necessarily the best thing. Paul, by the way, you're the man. Paul's commenting on everything we do here. I appreciate your support, Paul. But they lost to UAB on the road the other day. They should have lost to Wichita State. I think they'll be fine, but they could also be that other type of team, by the way, that they could be the type of team that actually like just needs to get to the tournament. Like they need to feel the urgency of the tournament. They brought back everybody from last year. So I think Florida Atlantic's okay. I don't love them though. What else we got here? Anything else before we get out? Drop your questions, drop your comments. Kentucky picks up the big win. By the way, loaded Wednesday Aaron Torres pod. If you're not subscribed, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, etc., etc. We'll have even more college hoop stuff. I have a UConn take I want to drop on everybody. I think that's it. Rip through the questions really quick. Any comments, questions, this, that, the other thing. Florida Atlantic. Here's the thing. I live on the West Coast. The family worked in Southern Cal, Syracuse. Parents associated. Read a good story about them. Florida Atlantic. Go Cats. Go Cats. You're welcome. All right. I think that's it. We had a good show tonight. Got a little quick start. I wanted to talk a little bit more Kentucky, but we got to it in the questions. But Wednesday Aaron Torres pod is loaded. Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do so. We're going to do some of these live reactions on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights, so make sure that you are subscribed. I will be back